Before we dive into one of the most calculated military operations of this conflict, make sure you're subscribed to Intel X. We bring you the most in-depth analysis of modern warfare, cutting through the noise to deliver the strategic insights you won't find anywhere else. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into the tactics shaping today's battlefields. The morning of August 30th, 2025 began like any other along Ukraine's Odessa coastline. But at precisely 7 o'clock, something extraordinary was set into motion. Heavy cruise missiles roared to life from their launch platforms, climbing into the dawn sky before arcing toward the occupied Crimean peninsula. These weren't ordinary projectiles. They were Flamingo cruise missiles, each one a 7-ton instrument of precision warfare, carrying enough explosive power to reshape the tactical landscape in a single strike. What made this morning different wasn't just the weapons themselves, it was the audacity of the plan. Ukraine was launching these massive missiles in broad daylight, making no attempt to conceal their departure. To any observer, particularly to Russian defense operators watching their radar screens, it seemed almost reckless. 3 large, slow-moving targets heading straight into the teeth of one of the world's most sophisticated air defense networks. But this apparent vulnerability was precisely the point. Inside Russian command centers across Crimea, senior military officials had gathered for their morning briefing. Intelligence reports suggested Ukrainian forces were reinforcing defensive positions. The pattern seemed clear. Kiev was bracing for another Russian offensive push through Crimea. Military planners reviewed troop deployments, discussed helicopter operations along the Sevastopol corridor, and finalized patrol schedules for coastal security around Sevastopol. Everything pointed to a routine day of preparation for their own offensive operations. Ukrainian strategists were counting on exactly this interpretation. They understood a fundamental principle of warfare that often goes overlooked. The moment you commit to an attack is precisely when your defenses are at their most vulnerable. Resources get redirected. Attention shifts outward. Small gaps appear in even the most robust defensive systems. This morning, Ukraine intended to exploit those gaps with surgical precision. The Flamingo missile represents a formidable leap in Ukraine's strike capabilities. With a maximum range exceeding 3,000 kilometers, these weapons can reach virtually any target of strategic importance. But range is only part of the story. Each missile carries a warhead weighing 1,150 kilograms, more than double the explosive payload of a Tomahawk cruise missile. This isn't just about throwing explosives at a target. This is about guaranteeing mission success with a single shot. The Warhead design incorporates bunker-penetrating technology with a delayed fuse mechanism. Upon impact, the weapon doesn't simply explode on the surface. Instead, it pierces through concrete and steel before detonating deep within the structure, channeling all that destructive energy into the building's interior. The resulting overpressure wave doesn't just damage walls, it obliterates everything functional inside. Power distribution systems, communication networks, electronic infrastructure, the nervous system of any military installation. The missile's body is constructed from fiberglass composite materials specifically engineered to minimize radar cross-section while maintaining structural integrity. This design choice serves a dual purpose, reducing detectability and providing resistance to electronic warfare countermeasures. In the increasingly contested electromagnetic environment of modern warfare, this resilience can mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Transporting these weapons to their launch positions was no simple undertaking. Each missile required careful handling and preparation. During those critical hours of setup, Ukrainian forces knew they were visible. Satellites overhead, reconnaissance assets watching, Russian S-400 air defense batteries maintaining their vigilant watch over Crimean airspace. The S-400 system shouldn't be underestimated. It's one of the most capable air defense platforms ever deployed, designed to engage multiple targets simultaneously at ranges exceeding hundreds of kilometers. Its radar systems can track dozens of objects, prioritizing threats and coordinating intercepts with devastating efficiency. On paper, 3 subsonic cruise missiles should have been textbook targets. But Ukrainian planners weren't relying on hope or luck. They were orchestrating something far more sophisticated. The operation hinged on perfect timing and coordination across multiple weapon systems. In addition to the 3 Flamingo missiles, Ukrainian forces had prepared a swarm of UJ-26 long-range kamikaze drones. These unmanned aircraft would play a crucial role, not as the primary strike weapon, but as the opening act in a carefully choreographed performance designed to overwhelm and confuse Russian defenses. At 7 in the morning, while Russian officers gathered in the FSB building in Armyansk to plan their own drone strikes against southern Ukraine, Cities, the UJ-26 drones lifted off from their launch sites. Built with composite materials and featuring minimal radar signatures, these drones are difficult to detect and even harder to track. Each carried between 25 and 30 kilograms of high explosives, a modest payload but one chosen for a very specific purpose. The flight plan was calculated down to the minute. The drones would take approximately 45 to 50 minutes to reach Crimean airspace, cruising at speeds between 150 and 180 kilometers per hour. They would navigate using a combination of GNSS satellite positioning, inertial navigation, and optical reference systems, maintaining the ability to reach their targets even under heavy electronic jamming. 30 minutes after the drones departed, the Flamingo missiles launched in 5-second intervals. With a flight time of approximately 15 minutes, both waves of weapons would converge on Crimean defenses at the same moment, creating a synchronized attack that would test every element of Russia's defensive network. Each Flamingo missile immediately dropped to low altitude after launch, hugging the terrain as it raced across the Black Sea. Flying parallel to the coastline at heights barely above the wave tops, the missiles engaged terrain-following mode, using a redundant navigation system that layered GNSS positioning with inertial guidance and radar altimetry. If satellite signals were jammed or disrupted, the missiles would seamlessly transition to terrain reference, using digital maps to navigate by ground features alone. Speed was kept deliberately subsonic, around 950 kilometers per hour. This wasn't about overwhelming defenses with velocity. This was about staying beneath the radar horizon for as long as possible, denying Russian operators the precious seconds they would need to identify, track, and engage the incoming threats. The physics of radar detection become the attacker's ally at these altitudes. Ground-based radar systems face a fundamental limitation: the curvature of the Earth itself. A missile flying at 20 to 30 meters altitude won't appear on radar screens until it's within approximately 20 to 25 kilometers of the antenna. By the time detection occurs, the target is nearly overhead. The window for a frontal intercept collapses to mere seconds. The drones arrived first, approaching from both northwest and northeast vectors. Their small size and composite construction made them appear on radar as little more than noise, single pixels flickering across the display for operators already managing multiple contacts and potential threats. These weren't designed to destroy the air defense systems outright. That would be impossible with their limited payload. Instead, their targets were carefully selected weak points in the defensive network: power distribution cabinets, waveguides, fiber optic connection nodes. The goal was degradation, not destruction. Introduce delays into the signal processing chain, create confusion in the tracking picture, buy a few critical seconds. The first drone struck the power distribution unit, feeding a 96L6 early warning radar. The antenna survived, still rotating on its mount, still transmitting, but inside the control cabin, power fluctuations cascaded through the processing systems. Signals that should have appeared cleanly on operator screens instead arrived delayed, distorted. Target identification cycles stretched from seconds to tens of seconds. Another drone severed the waveguide connection to an MR-10 coastal surveillance unit. The antenna kept turning, oblivious to the fact that it was now blind, its signal pathway cut like a severed nerve. Pantsir short-range air defense systems reacted instantly, their automated systems engaging multiple drones. 2 were destroyed in mid-flight, brilliant flashes against the morning sky. But 4 others reached their targets, their small warheads detonating against cabinets and connection points with surgical precision. The effect wasn't a total blackout. In a densely layered defense network like Crimea's, complete blindness is nearly impossible to achieve. But that wasn't the objective. The objective was to impose delay, to create what intelligence analysts call degradation under pressure. Systems that appeared functional but couldn't produce actionable tracking data fast enough to matter. Into this window of confusion, the 3 Flamingo missiles made their final approach. Flamingo 1 locked onto the FSB Border Security and Intelligence Facility in Armyansk. This wasn't just an administrative building. It housed the command and communications hub, coordinating operations across the northern Crimean corridor. The Warhead configuration was set for penetration and internal detonation, designed to pass through the outer concrete structure before exploding inside the facility's nerve center. Flying at 20 to 25 meters altitude, stabilized by its autopilot systems, the missile made its terminal run. Russian air defense crews detected the incoming threat, but the geometry was all wrong for intercept. Too low, too fast, too close to the ground clutter that creates false radar returns. The missile struck with devastating precision. The building's exterior remained largely intact, a facade of normalcy. But inside, the delayed fuse warhead unleashed its energy exactly where it would do the most damage. Power distribution systems disintegrated. Network backbone infrastructure severed. Cable management systems melted. In command rooms throughout the facility, screens flickered and went dark. Field radio connections died. The building was still standing, but it was functionally dead. For defenders, this creates a particularly insidious problem. In a total blackout, everyone knows the systems are down and emergency protocols activate. But when lights are still on and screens still glow, precious minutes can be wasted trying to restore connections that no longer exist. The decision-making process grinds to a halt while operators troubleshoot phantom problems. Flamingo 2 targeted the power distribution management point and field communications cabin within the same complex. Again, the warhead was configured for delayed detonation, maximizing internal destruction. The goal wasn't dramatic imagery of collapsed buildings, the goal was function. Null paralysis that would take weeks, not days, to repair. 15 kilometers from impact, the missile encountered brief GNSS interference, Russian electronic warfare systems attempting to blind its navigation. The Flamingo didn't falter. It seamlessly transitioned to inertial guidance and terrain reference, continuing its approach with undiminished accuracy. When the jamming ceased and GNSS signals returned, the navigation system automatically recalibrated, correcting any drift that might have accumulated. Pantsir batteries launched interceptors in a desperate attempt to stop the incoming threat. But low altitude combined with urban ground clutter created impossible tracking conditions. The missile was there, then it was gone, lost in the radar noise of buildings and terrain features. No frontal intercept solution could be calculated in time. The strike hit home. Another facility crippled from within. Flamingo 3 had a different mission profile. Its target was the small pier facility in Sevastopol where patrol boats maintained their operational berths. The strike points were carefully chosen, the fuel supply manifold and the pier's small command cabin. Understanding the target selection requires thinking beyond simple destruction. A pier is more than concrete and steel. It's a logistics node, a fuel distribution point, a command coordination site. Sever the fuel lines, and boats can't refuel. Destroy the command cabin, and coordination breaks down. Dislodge the mooring infrastructure, and vessels can't safely dock. The result isn't just a damaged pier, it's an entire harbor entrance deemed unsafe for operations. Patrol schedules collapse, refueling cycles break down, diver and barrier operations face delays. The ripple effects extend far beyond the immediate damage. Flamingo 3 stabilized at 15 to 20 meters for its final approach, threading through the coastal defenses at a height where radar detection becomes nearly impossible. The warhead detonated internally upon impact. The fuel manifold ruptured, spilling petroleum products across the pier. The command cabin disintegrated. Mooring pilings were torn from their foundations. At least one hovercraft-class patrol boat, either an A-8 or A-25 variant designed to carry assault teams of 8 or 25 personnel, suffered catastrophic damage when its mooring connections failed. Other vessels remained afloat but were cut off from refueling infrastructure, essentially trapped without operational support. Defensive fire continued even after the missiles had struck, guns tracking targets that no longer existed. The window of opportunity had opened and closed in less than a minute. The question demands answering. How did 3 subsonic cruise missiles penetrate one of the world's most advanced air defense networks? The answer isn't about weakness. The S-400 system is extraordinarily capable under the right conditions. It has the theoretical capability to engage and destroy these exact types of targets. Ukrainian sources confirm that none of the 3 missiles were intercepted, but this doesn't mean the system is ineffective. It means geometry and timing conspired to create a perfect storm of vulnerability. Low-altitude flight profiles exploit a fundamental limitation of ground-based radar, the horizon. At 30 meters altitude, a target only becomes visible to a fixed radar installation at approximately 20 to 25 kilometers range. That's the point where the line of sight clears the Earth's curvature. When detection finally occurs, the target is essentially already overhead. In that compressed time frame, calculating a frontal intercept becomes nearly impossible. The missile's slow, steady speed combined with its small radar cross-section creates a signature that's difficult to distinguish from ground clutter. Doppler filters that normally help separate moving targets from stationary background get confused by coastal reflections and urban structures. Tracking locks break. Intercept solutions fail to converge. The fallback is a stern chase scenario where interceptors try to catch the target from behind, spreading a cloud of fragments in its path, but this requires sustained tracking and predictable target behavior. The Flamingo's low altitude and constant speed profile, combined with the chaos created by the earlier drone strikes, made even this approach problematic. This operation succeeded because it was designed with razor-thin margins and multiple redundancies. The kamikaze drones didn't attempt to destroy the air defense network. They created just enough degradation to delay reaction times by seconds. Those seconds were all the Flamingos needed. The missile's heavy warheads ensured single-shot effectiveness against hardened targets. No need for follow-up strikes or battle damage assessment missions. One missile, one target, mission complete. The time-on-target discipline meant all 3 missiles arrived within the same minute, distributing the defensive load so no single intercept battery could focus effectively. The defenders had to engage multiple threats simultaneously, dividing attention and resources at the worst possible moment. But success was never guaranteed. 2 of the kamikaze drones were shot down. One wave experienced delays. The 96L6 radar showed signs of rapid recovery. A Tor battery managed to launch 2 interceptors at Flamingo 1. If the tracking solution had held for a few more seconds, if the lock-on scan had achieved continuity, a genuine threat to the mission could have materialized. GNSS jamming, if sustained throughout the terminal phase, might have caused navigation errors measuring tens of meters. Without the backup systems of radar altimetry and digital terrain reference, the strikes could have missed their aim points entirely, resulting in explosions outside target structures with minimal functional damage. None of these potential failures were left to chance. Every route included backup navigation. Every target was selected according to critical vulnerability, not visual impact. The operation was backed by redundancy at every level. The damage assessment painted a stark picture of operational paralysis. The FSB border facility in Armyansk lost all command and control functionality. The power distribution backbone was severed. Field communications burned out. The building's shell remained standing, but everything that made it operationally relevant was destroyed. Field units lost their coordination hub. Supply chains broke down. Command authority fragmented. At Sevastopol, the Our infrastructure collapsed, fuel distribution ceased. At least 1 patrol boat was rendered inoperative, with others cut off from refueling cycles. Harbor operations ground to a halt, not because the entire port was destroyed, but because critical nodes in the logistics chain were eliminated. This is modern precision warfare at its most effective. 3 missiles producing strategic effects far beyond their immediate blast radius. The fact that this was the first operational combat use of Flamingo missiles at this scale demonstrated that even the most sophisticated layered defenses can be forced to reveal gaps when faced with the right combination of tactics, timing, and technology. What this operation reveals is the evolving nature of modern strike warfare. Success doesn't require overwhelming the enemy with mass or speed. It requires understanding the geometry of detection, the limitations of defensive systems, and the critical vulnerabilities in command infrastructure. The defensive response to this type of attack will require fundamental changes. Sensor networks need redundant power and fiber infrastructure. Mobile low-altitude intercept systems must be deployed. Radar coverage needs to be redesigned around the assumption that threats will exploit the horizon, not challenge it. But implementing those solutions takes time, resources, and coordination. Until those improvements are in place, the gaps exposed by this morning's 3 strikes will continue to create operational vulnerabilities measured not in hours, but in weeks and months on the calendar. The morning of August 30th demonstrated that in modern warfare, the advantage doesn't always go to the largest military or the most advanced technology. It goes to the side that can think creatively, plan meticulously, and execute with precision timing. 3 missiles, 3 targets. 3 strategic nodes eliminated in a single coordinated strike that will be studied in military academies for years to come. If you found this deep dive into modern military tactics valuable, make sure you're subscribed to Intel X. We cut through the headlines to bring you the strategic analysis that matters. Hit that like button, share this with anyone interested in understanding how modern conflicts are really fought, and we'll see you in the next investigation. Until then, stay informed, stay ahead.